So this is obviously an evolving story that kind of a lot of people are waking up to this morning going, what the hell's going on here? So we don't know is the short answer to whether or not there's going to be an NBA season. I would say it's probably odds against that they're going to finish out the season. Who knows? There'll be a series of meetings today, but as Will rightly said, 3 games pulled yesterday at the last minute. As a result, the broadcasters had to fill a lot of airtime, and it sounds like they did it fairly magnificently with a proper, sustained, long discussion about the state of the world right now.
Yeah, I guess we'll walk through this story for our viewers and listeners who maybe haven't heard the full scale of it. So, yeah, the Milwaukee Bucks, leading one of the most powerful sporting protests in recent memory last night, they decided to sit out Game 5 of their NBA playoff, as we've mentioned, with the Orlando Magic. The Bucks were protesting the police shooting of Jacob Blake in Wisconsin on Sunday. He remains in hospital but is recovering. Blake, a 29-year-old black man, was shot 7 times in the back by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin, as he tried to enter the driver's side door of his vehicle. 3 of his children were inside the vehicle. Officers said they were responding to a domestic disturbance. Blake's attorney, Ben Crump, said his client is paralysed and it will take a miracle for him to walk again. Milwaukee is around 40 miles north of where that shooting took place. After the Lakers and the Trailblazers indicated they would do the same, the NBA postponed last night's 3 games. The other involved the Houston Rockets game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's the most potent sporting action taken yet in the Black Lives Matter movement. Bucks stars Sterling Brown and George Hill read this prepared statement from Milwaukee Bucks players after they decided to boycott their game.
The past 4 months have shed a light on the ongoing racial injustices facing our African-American community. Citizens around the country have used their voices and platforms to speak out against these wrongdoings. Over the last few days in our home state of Wisconsin, we've seen the horrendous video of Jacob Blake being shot in the back 7 times by a police officer in Kenosha, and the additional shooting of protesters. Despite the overwhelming plea for change, there has been no action, so our focus today cannot be on basketball.
When we take the court and represent Milwaukee and Wisconsin, we are expected to play at a high level, give maximum effort, and hold each other accountable. We hold ourselves to that standard, and in this moment, we are demanding the same from lawmakers and law enforcement. We are calling for justice for Jacob Blake and demand the officers be held accountable. For this to occur, it is imperative for the Wisconsin State Legislature to reconvene after months of inaction and take up meaningful measures to address issues of police accountability, brutality, and criminal justice reform. We encourage all citizens to educate themselves, take peaceful and responsible action, and remember to vote on November 3rd on the behalf of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Sterling Brown and George Hill there. I should point out, though, that these protests in Kenosha have been met with, there was a really haunting scene of a 17-year-old with an assault rifle firing into the crowd. He's now been charged with murder. So what's happened here has been 3 or 4 nights of massive riots that have been sparked by the latest incident. So it's a tinderbox that was already ready to blow, and there have been fairly horrific incidents of white supremacists as an answer to the people protesting the original shooting. So that all is the context for what's happened yesterday. Yeah,
dramatic scenes on television as well too. After that Milwaukee Bucks statement began, television commentator and former NBA player Kenny Smith walking off the set of the NBA on TNT show last night in solidarity with the Milwaukee Bucks.
I think the biggest thing now is to kind of, as a black man, as a former player, I think it's best for me to support the players and just not be here tonight. And figure out what happens after that. Yeah, I just don't feel equipped to do that.
And I respect that.
Yeah, Kenny Smith there walking off the NBA on TNT show last night in solidarity with the Milwaukee Bucks players. Meanwhile, Chris Webber, the 5-time NBA All-Star and former NBA Rookie of the Year, delivered this powerful message on television last night.
No change tomorrow. We know vote. We keep hearing vote. Everybody vote. But I'm here to speak for those that are always marginalized. Those that live in these neighborhoods where we preach and tell them to vote and walk away. Charles Barkley came to my high school just seeing him in the locker room, seeing his hands and his body, that inspired me. You can't see something, you can't be something till you see it. And when I tell you the little kids that have called me upset, I have a godson that has autism, and I just had to explain to him why we aren't playing. I have young nephews that I've had to talk to about death before they've even seen it in a movie. If not now, when? If not during a pandemic and countless lives being lost, if not now, when? That's all I just want to hear from the rest of the night, where everybody's pontificating and thinking and soapboxing and all of that. We know nothing is going to change. We get it. If Martin Luther King got shot and risked his life, Medgar Evers, if we've seen this and all of our heroes constantly taken down, we understand it's not going to end. But that does not mean, young men, that you don't do anything. Don't listen to these people telling you don't do anything, because it's not going to end right away. You are starting something for the next generation and the next generation to take over. Do you have to be smart? Yes. Do you have to make sure that you have a plan? Yes. Do you have to be articulate about that plan? Yes. All of those things. But that's what you're going to do. They're professionals. They know how to be the best of themselves. And so I applaud it. I applaud it because it is the young people. It is the young people leading the way, and I applaud them.
Yeah, really powerful words there from Chris Webber on television last night after this Milwaukee Bucks solidarity protest. Former President Barack Obama was one of those who spoke out on Twitter last night saying, "I commend the players on the Bucks for standing up for what they believe in, coaches like Doc Rivers and the NBA and WNBA for setting an example. It's going to take all our institutions to stand up for our values." In his post, Obama shared this video of LA Clippers head coach Doc Rivers speaking about the protest.
All you do is keep hearing about fear. It's amazing to me why we keep loving this country and this country does not love us back. And it's really so sad. Like, I should just be a coach. And it's so often reminded of my color. You know, it's just really sad. We got to do better. But we got to demand better. Like, we got, you know, it's funny. We protest and they send riot guards, right? They send people in riot outfits. They go to Michigan with guns and they're spitting on cops and nothing happens. The training has to change in the police force. The unions have to be taken down in the police force. My dad was a cop. I believe in good cops. We're not trying to defund the police and take all their money away. We're trying to get them to protect us, just like they protect everybody else. I didn't want to talk about it before the game because it's so hard, like, to just keep watching it. That video, if you watch that video, you don't need to be black to be outraged. You need to be American and outraged. And how dare the Republicans talk about fear? We're the ones that need to be scared. We're the ones having to talk to every black child. What white father has to give his son a talk about being careful if you get pulled over? It's just ridiculous. And it just keeps going. There's no charges. Breonna Taylor, no charges, nothing. All we're asking is you live up to the Constitution. That's all we're asking for everybody, for everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, the voice you heard there was Doc Rivers, the head coach of the Los Angeles Clippers in the NBA. Other sports have followed where these basketball players led. 3 Major League Baseball games were called off after teams decided not to play. And in soccer, 5 MLS matches were postponed. Among those baseball games, the Seattle Mariners announced they had decided not to play the second game of their MLB series against the San Diego Padres. That decision was based on a unanimous vote from the players, with Mariners player D. Gordon tweeting, "There are serious issues in this country. For me and for many of my teammates, the injustices, violence, death and systemic racism is deeply personal. This is impacting not only my community, but very directly my family and friends. Our team voted unanimously not to play tonight. Instead of watching us, we hope people will focus on the things more important than sports that are happening." Tennis player Naomi Osaka pulled out of a WTA match due to take place today. She tweeted that she would no longer play her semi-final in the Western and Southern Open in New York, saying that, quote, "As a black woman, I feel as though there are much more important matters at hand that need immediate attention rather than watching me play tennis." Several hours after Osaka's statement, the tournament announced it was pausing play for a day. The Lakers' LeBron James tweeted last night, "F this man, we demand change, sick of it." Karl Anthony Towns of the Minnesota Timberwolves added, "Shoot hoops, not people," while Denver Nuggets player Jamal Murray said, "We demand justice." And finally, lads, a stat that will unfortunately surprise no one, just to finish off. A 2020 study from Harvard University this year of just over 5,000 police-related fatalities in the US from 2013 to 2017 found that black people were on average 3 times more likely to be killed by police than white people in the US.
Really amazing stuff, considering frequently we've seen protests over the last decade or so, maybe even the last 2 decades, where there's a surge in protests, everything dies down, there's a set piece organised by the sports organisations, and everybody moves on with their lives. You think of the Dallas Cowboys kneeling before the national anthem and then standing up for the national anthem arm in arm, and Jerry Jones saying, "Look, I've paid attention here to what's going on." And that was that 2 years ago now when that happened, and he's still trying to do the same thing this year for the Cowboys when the NFL resumes, and it's just not going to wash anymore. It turns out that the players have realised the incredible amount of power and influence that they have, and this is the other side of influencer culture, where actually people's voice has been magnified to the point where LeBron James walking out of that meeting last night may well bring an end to the NBA season. It is an incredible moment in sports history, and I don't actually remember anything like this. If you think back, obviously I wasn't alive when it happened, but in the protest, the Black Power salute in the Olympic Games in Mexico, the 2 protagonists were shunned by the Olympics, they were shunned by the US Olympic Committee, and they were shunned by sponsors for ages afterwards. It was really like 25, 30 years later that polite society welcomed them back in. All the time they were obviously heroes to the black community and to people with any sense of a brain. But it's just really interesting. I think that it feels like perhaps things might actually change as a result of this.
I think as well, Jared, this is exactly 4 years to the day yesterday that Colin Kaepernick took a knee. And at the time, Colin Kaepernick and the minority of players in the NFL who were protesting at that stage felt like they were very much on the margins, while there is a feeling that there's a united front coming from the basketball players across the NBA here. Like, the stakes are an awful lot higher than a preseason NFL game versus potentially a season being pulled down entirely. And when players decide that they're going to do this, it gets the attention of those billionaires and it gets the attention of those who are in power. The stakes, to me, feel, even in that very short period of time of 4 years, are much higher this time around. And the fact that other sports have done so in solidarity too, it probably shouldn't be sports people that have to be the role models and those who are getting the conversation rolling. But for me, this seems like it's a massive jump up even to that short period ago.
Yeah, look, I think ideally leadership would come from politics, but that's not the case. It's certainly not the case over there. It certainly hasn't been the case in our nearest neighbour. And, you know, I mean, maybe we have to look at ourselves a little bit here and think about things too. It was interesting listening to one of the people speaking there, who was it, said, you know, don't listen to people who are saying don't do this. I was like, that's exactly what David Goff was saying. In the Examiner carried it, and it was from a podcast at the weekend where he was saying that 3 senior officials in the GAA told him, do not wear the rainbow armband. You're going to regret this. It's going to damage your career. It's exactly what people in power tell people who want to bring change. And we've all got to look at ourselves, I think. If this is going to have any meaningful, long-lasting repercussions, it shouldn't just be for the NBA, and it shouldn't just be for sport in America and society in America, but it's certainly an opportunity for us all to open a conversation.